Welcome to another episode of Triumph Against Odds. On this episode, we have someone who took an idea and turned it into something huge. With me today, I have Affiong Williams. Personally, I'm a big fan of hers, but to see what today brings, you just have to stay tuned and don't go anywhere. So, it's nice to have you. I've actually been looking forward to this, to meeting you and talking to you, because you're one person who has been like a source of inspiration to a lot of people and women too. I know a lot of people look up to you, and they aspire to achieve great things when they look at you and see how far you've come. I know you're still going far, but at least you've gone from point A to point B, and moved along quite a lot. And there are people who are just at the beginning and are looking for inspiration on, okay, how do I move forward? How do I make progress? And that's one of the main reasons why we are here in the first place. So we'll just go right into it. So my first question is, growing up in Nigeria, where fruit was abundant but perishable, how did those early experiences shape your perspective on business and problem solving?
So I grew up in a small town. It's not actually a small town. Calabar is not really a small town.
Not really small.
But I grew up there, compared to Lagos, it's a very small town, and wasn't really exposed to anything to do with fruit or fruit perishability or anything. I mean, I grew up in the town of Calabar, which was quite developed. Even though my grandfather was he studied agriculture and taught agriculture, and he had a farm, so I used to go to his farm. But I remember, going and we'd like pluck soursop and things like that, but nothing that I thought would ever lead me to this. However, my childhood was a great childhood. I loved my childhood, and I was so exposed to, I was given a lot of independence as a child, and I think that's what relates to kind of my entrepreneurial journey down the line. I was allowed to do things on my own from a young age. I used to walk to my cousin's house, which was like a kilometer away, at like 5 years old. I was allowed to roam outside. My cousin and I used to go to a market. I remember very, very distinctly, we used to go to the market to buy toys and random things and sell in our neighborhood. We used to cook and sell food to my bigger cousins and things like that. So that, I think, was more of the formative stuff that I can link to my entrepreneurial pursuits later on. But my childhood was very, very idyllic in a way. A lot of family, a lot of freedom, a lot of just being outside and experiencing the world by myself from a young age. I used to travel alone. I used to be put on planes alone, so built that kind of independence in me. Yeah.
Okay, but in all of this, is what you're doing now, is there anything from your childhood that was like something that you drew from it to put in what you're doing now, or lessons or things that you thought about, or problems you're trying to solve?
Not directly, but just, I would say, my ability to take risk was fostered as a child. I was like I said, risk and independence. I was allowed to be independent. Then of course, you're made to start figuring things out for yourself. So as a young child, I would say my risk taking is something that kind of led me to being in business and to then finally take the step to do it. But yeah, that's kind of that's it from my childhood.
People know you as the CEO of ReelFruit, but what's a small, almost trivial habit or quirk that actually says a lot about how you think as a leader?
Yes, this is a very good question. I think you definitely have to be my restlessness. I'm a very restless person. I struggle to sit still. And I think, if there's one piece of feedback my team always give me, is that I feel sometimes you flip-flop a lot, you go back and forth. And that's true. And it's because I think very quickly about solving problems, taking decisions, and then sometimes I'm forced to walk back and say, oh no, I didn't think of that, so I go back, and it sometimes throws off my team. I'm sure it frustrates them a lot, but yeah, I'm restless. It's hard for me to sit in one place. It's hard, I think very quickly, and so that quirk definitely plays into my leadership.
Okay. After launching your new 800-ton processing facility, what crossroads do you feel you are standing at right now in terms of ReelFruit's future, local expansion versus global scale?
Well, that's a very, very good question. I'll answer that by going back in kind of history a little bit. So, trying to raise money for my expansion of my factory was always a contention with investors around building for a market that didn't exist, meaning that I had to I basically had to build a factory at scale, because if you want your cost to come down, you have to build at scale. Yes. So I had to build at a particular scale for a market I didn't currently have. And the gap was that I would get into the international market, right? Okay. And a lot of investors didn't believe that. The question was, well, where's your market? And I would be like, I can't get the market because I don't have the scale. So it was that back and forth. And of course, my investors, who are wonderful, kind of took that bet on me. And after the factory came up, the first challenge was, well, where is the market? You now have the factory, where is the market? So last year we were chasing market. We could not find, I was like, not that we couldn't find, but there was a lot to get the factory up to capacity. And I sent a LinkedIn message to one buyer in the Netherlands, and she responded. And she came to Nigeria, and that's how I got my first international buyer. And we got a second one, and these two buyers have now kind of taken up most of our capacity. So the crossroads I'm standing at is, now I've proven that market, but then where's the raw material to produce? And we are learning those challenges around finding raw material, seasonality, price variations, all of that stuff. So that's the crossroads I'm at right now, that I had a market problem, I solved that market problem, and now I have a raw material problem. I have to solve that raw material problem. So that crossroads is, it's a better crossroads to be at, but it's also very sobering because, without raw material, I can't grow. I can only grow to the extent I have available and reliable raw material. So that's the crossroads I'm at right now. And it's kind of evolved over time. But it's great to know that, we don't have a challenge finding buyers and markets. What we have now a challenge is organizing the supply chain. Yeah.
So take us back to those early days in 2012 when you were importing dried fruit from Ghana. Was there a moment when it felt like the Nigerian market just wouldn't accept it? What kept you from quitting?
That's I don't know, I keep saying that's a very good question. All your questions are so good. But yeah, I was just also reflecting on that this morning, that we had a very slow start in the beginning of this business, and of course I don't know whether that had to do with my product or whether that just has to do with what it takes to introduce a new product into the market. It was obviously it was a premium product, so you had that bias that you could not just sell it anywhere. You had to do a lot of education, you had to change a lot of habits, and that took a while. It took years. I don't think till year 6 or 7 of my business I was convinced that we had built enough of a local market that people had actually loved the product, so I could keep investing in growing it. There was a lot of start and stops, a lot of come and pick your product is not selling, a lot of feedback from the market. It was not quick at all. I don't have one of those stories where you just launch a product and everyone's rushing for it. No, they were not rushing for my product.
Okay, so what kept you going despite all of this?
What kept me going, I would say, is probably a mix of a more youthful exuberance and naivety. When I was young, I was much more energetic and defiant and rebellious. I was like, I had this thing that Nigeria will not get me, you know, like all the problems I faced, I would defeat, like Nigeria will not happen to me kind of thing. And that was a lot of my bravado. Of course, I did have support, and we were growing. It wasn't like we were not growing, but you know, we were not growing at a pace where I felt confident that, you know, we had a business here. But there was just a lot of youthful energy that was like, I'm going to beat the odds, you know. That was kind of my stance, and I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and then you get one little win here, and it kind of gets, you know, it keeps you going, and you get another lead here. And I also knew that my product was global, so you know, I had of course I had to launch it locally to kind of build a business locally, but from day one, I always knew that I wanted to export it. So we just had to keep also building because we wanted to take the product global. So that was at the back of my mind. But obviously, you know, when you don't even have capacity for a local market, are you really dreaming of exports? But that was a far-fetched dream, but still a dream. But it was more that I just was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to just put this product everywhere. And you know, it worked, fortunately.
Okay. So still relating to that, you once had to convince people why they should eat dried mango when fresh ones were everywhere. What old belief, either yours or the market, did you have to unlearn to build ReelFruit?
What old belief did I have to unlearn
to build
ReelFruit? The main one that comes to mind is that, you know, you need 100 naira product. That was when I moved back to Nigeria, you know, after I was like, okay, I'm doing this business. Everywhere you heard, what if the product was 100 naira? If it was 100 naira, and at some point I even tried it. I actually developed 100 naira product and opened a shop in the market. We actually had a shop. I just remember that in the market, you know, trying to be close to the distributors, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't work. You know, customers rejected it. Distributors complained bitterly. The product it wasn't a great product for that, you know, category. And when I pulled back, I just kind of had to accept that we are not a mass market product and we are going to have to scale a premium product. And so the myth was that you can scale a non-100 naira product at the time. And we just leaned into our customer, leaned into the fact that it's premium, leaned into the pricing that it had to be, and didn't look back. You know, even places where, you know, before, places where we felt we didn't have our customers based there, we would just not sell there. There was no more, you know, myth about trying to be affordable, trying to do pricing for one place, pricing for the other place. It was just like, we're premium, that's what we are, you know, accept it and build that way. Yeah.
Okay. Was there a point, maybe during fundraising or scaling, when you genuinely considered walking away from ReelFruit? What made you stay the course?
Yes, so it's funny enough, the point was that it wasn't like something like, you know, dramatic happened, but I think it was kind of in my 8th year of running the business, and the years are blurry now because it's been 13 years, so I don't really know when we're talking about here. But there was just a pivotal point where I felt that I was tired of running a small business, and at that point, I didn't feel like the failure of this business was as a result of me. I didn't have that need to be defiant or to break the odds anymore. I just felt, I really felt secure that I was a great entrepreneur, but I was just not in the right market, you know, and if this thing doesn't move the way I want it to move, I have no interest in running a small business. I want to run a big business. I want a business that raises capital, and I was ready to walk away, you know, not with at peace that, like, you know, I'm done my bit. This business is not big enough for me. And then my investment discussions kind of ramped up then, and then, you know, we're close. So just in the nick of time, it became, you know, serious that I was going to raise, because obviously when you're raising money, there are a lot of false starts. There are a lot of like, oh, we're coming. Oh, you know, I've had a situation where I signed a term sheet and my investor ghosted me, and thank God actually in hindsight, because this investor came out that this investment firm had a terrible reputation, and was probably going to it was probably not going to end well for my business. So there were, you'd gone through a lot of those discussions where you have promising leads and then they fall through. So at this point I was ready to walk away and just be at peace that, look, I tried it. I'm a good entrepreneur, just not the market for my product. And then my current investors kind of were decisive about wanting to put in money, and things move from there. So that's kind of what turned the tables around.
Okay. Nigeria's $10 billion fruit market is still heavily import dependent. How did you adapt your strategy to compete against foreign products and still carve a niche for ReelFruit?
So I started off obviously focusing my business on distribution, on being where customers are, and that was primarily in formal retail shops. So that's how we started to basically work on being in places where people could first of all see your product, right? And our first packaging was very loud. I was very intentional about it being this like kind of bad orange and loud yellow, and the idea was that we wanted to stand out on the shelf. So those two things helped. In the beginning, people thought we were an imported product. I mean, we're coming from Ghana, but they didn't think it was Nigerian, locally Nigerian building it. And so we kind of started like that. And then of course expanded the range, added new products. So that helps you kind of create a niche. And of course, doing the dried fruit, towing that line in the beginning, no one knew what it was. But then when people started knowing it, we were the ones that kind of were the market leaders by virtue of being the market creators. So that helped deepen the niche and just give us that space, as our own, that we built the market. And then we just try to get our product everywhere my customers were. We did Arik like 6 years, I think 10, maybe 8 years ago, when we were very small. We were serving on Arik Airlines. I remember what it took for me because Arik was ordering like 40,000 packs of snacks a week, and I can't tell you what it took to deliver that weekly, but it gave us this impression that we're really building our snacks on international airlines, private airlines. We just put our products in schools, sometimes hospitals, hotels, we're in hotel rooms, so just places where we got like visibility and our products could be seen. So that really helped us. Distribution really helped us. Putting our products in strategic places really helped us build this niche. And as the category grew, fortunately, our brand equity grew, and we were seen as like the leaders of the category. So that helped us like now carve out this niche. And actually, what's funny is that now, even though people say, oh, you do the snacks, and I'm like, the snacks is actually now a tiny minority of our business. Our business is way more than snacks, but we are known for that, and we take it, but we're known for that, and that that still is kind of what we're seen for as like the leaders in that space. And so that's kind of how we built it, and that's worked in our favor.
Okay, there is a funny tweet where you tease your husband about still not unpacking his suitcase 2 weeks after a trip. In entrepreneurship, there are also those suitcases, the tough tasks or decisions we sometimes delay. What's one business suitcase you left unpacked for too long, and what finally gave you the motivation to open it up?
This is a very easy one. Definitely pricing. Entrepreneurs and pricing. We are very bad at adjusting our pricing. Which is funny because, all your vendors will change price immediately. The naira tanks, or immediately one thing happens. But you'll be like, oh, I can't do it. What about the customer? No one will buy anymore. And at some point it was just like, if we don't address our pricing and our margins, we're just not building something to last. And we took a strategic decision that we're going to attack pricing, and if we see XYZ marker in the business change, we change our pricing. It's tough, it's painful, but it's something you have to do. I can't tell you, I speak from experience, but when I talk to other entrepreneurs, when you look at their numbers, I'm like, I don't even need to dig to know you're underpricing. You're underpricing, but it's so hard. It's just something you say, oh, I'll work harder. I'll go and save costs here. I'll do this. I'll do that. Yeah, pricing have entrepreneurs in a chokehold. But once you get unemotional about it, that you know what, we are not immune. We're not somehow living in like some magic protection from the market. In fact, we're one of the we get hit with increased pricing.
Sure.
I mean, it's first, and so we have to address it easily and just be unemotional about it.
Sure.
And when you change your pricing, you usually find out that people eventually adjust. So yeah, that's definitely an unpacked suitcase that that used to stumble. I used to stumble with for a long period of time. Yeah.
When your projection looks shaky, whether in breaking into US shelves or building the Abeokuta factory, how did you keep the balance between optimism and hard financial realism?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, there's no easy answer to this because, as much as people say, react immediately financially, even when you do things like, let's say if you're unfortunately you have to cut jobs or you have to do this, it's not putting you in the best position because to build back up takes time. Or if the market turns and you're not ready, or you don't have the right team and things like that, you do pay a price for it. So on the one hand, you want to, I think we take a very pragmatic approach, which is that, okay, you cut all the things you have to, that are nice to have, and you suspend those. And then everybody kind of puts their effort and their time into what will create value, right? And what can create value. So we tend to look at it as, the tough financial decisions are just, pausing everything. Sometimes it's expansion, sometimes it's plans to do this. You just put everything on hold. Sometimes it's big marketing campaigns. You just stop it and say, okay, let's have a bias towards what can we plow money into or resources into that would lead into some return, or will actually get us closer to getting our customer. So we always assess where we are putting in resources, and it's not something that I like to pretend I was good at from the beginning. Certainly something, especially as we've grown and I have a board who kind of coached us on how to really take decisions on how you are spending, because even if things are bad, you have to spend money somewhere. And it's like, where do you put the money, or where do you take the decisions? And usually it's on what will grow. So I give a practical example. I'm not the only one who's going to complain about, the shrinking of retail this year. Retail has been brutal. It has been bloody. At the same time, we've spent let me use a better word. We spent a hefty sum of money in getting certification. That is, we spent a lot of money, done a lot of factory adaptations to meet international certification. And the reason why we did that, even though we were not really growing on the retail side, was because those were necessary for export sales. So if you don't have that certification, you don't sell. So it became just, a clear decision, even though it took so much funds from the company that we had to plow funds into that avenue to open up more sales and growth. So things like that is how we approach just uncertainty in the market, and when our best laid plans don't go as planned.
Okay. If fear wasn't a factor, what bold move would you make next for ReelFruit or for Nigerian agribusiness in general?
I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of anything when it comes to my sector, because I've encountered all the fear. I think I've left my fear behind like 2 years ago. So I would say the question would be more around if I had a blank check. Because
okay, if you had a blank check,
exactly,
and you could do anything.
If I had a blank check, I would plant coconut and mango trees all across. No, I wouldn't say all across Nigeria, in strategic states in Nigeria. I would invest in huge commercial tree crops, farms across Nigeria, because, well, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer for my business. It's a no-brainer for the industry. Tree crops are very profitable. Tree crops are investments that give you returns for 50 to 70 years. You know, the tree crops that we're harvesting from now were planted in the 70s, 60s, 80s, and they're what are supporting my business today, what are the lifeline of my business today. So if I think into the future, that's what I would do. I would plant a ton of tree crops that would basically create even excess raw material in the market, so that, you know, we could invite more industry, invite more processing, so that companies that are currently importing their inputs like fruit concentrate, you know, and making juice can use local fruit and things like that, and it would create a lot of wealth. Tree crops are incredibly profitable. Tree crops don't require you to be taking care of them like you need to do vegetables and maize and all that. You leave them and you take care of them in the beginning, but they are very reliant, self-reliant, and they give you a harvest no matter what. And so, yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay, but if is this something that you're really looking at doing?
Yeah, we're starting off actually our first orchard soon, our first coconut plantation soon. Yeah, we already have a demo farm in our factory that we've been doing some research and development on, you know, different species of fruit. But yes, it's a plan of our company primarily to secure our own raw material needs. Right now, most of the coconut we consume in Lagos comes from outside of Lagos and outside of Nigeria. I mean, people think it comes from Badagry, but yeah, so that creates some not just cost and availability, but availability. The demand is growing, so we see those things as problems that we need to solve going forward. But yeah, I would do that. I think tree crops could create a lot of wealth for Nigeria. I'm biased because it's my industry, but you know, the numbers don't lie.
And I'm actually happy that you've already started working on that, because for me, that was one thing I wanted to say. I said, why not, you know, start build those raw materials? Why not find a way of also, if you can also get investors to say, okay, see how this thing is going, but we need this. So if you can also, we can do this. And like you said, in fact, already sounds like a pitch, you know, it goes a long way to help the industry and everything. So it's
not easy, and you know, it's not easy to get investment in Nigeria. It's not easy to get investment in agribusiness in Nigeria. It's not easy to get investment in primary agriculture because it is very risky. And obviously, I won't even mention the government, because the government, you know, with limited resources, will you invest in trees or will you invest in cassava? Like staple crops over tree crops, I get it. I'm not a priority. So it's a very small window of a very, very small window of people or organizations or stakeholders who will actually put money in this idea, because it's long term, because who's going to loan you money for like 5 years before they get a return. So we understand all of that. That's the constraint. But our goal is to build a pilot, because if we do a successful pilot, then we can make the business case for people to say, well, we've done it, it's less risky, so you now take it on. And especially for individuals who have who have land, who have capital that they may be willing to plow and don't want to plow it to something as, you know, I mean, not to say agriculture is not risky, but farming tree crops is less risky than others. So things like that, looking at those kind of ways to propagate growing. But I think we need a model first. I think we need to put our money where our mouth is and do something that works, and then say, okay, this is how we can scale it. So that's what we're doing.
Okay. So if the next 5 years of your life and business were written as a book chapter, what would its title be, and what would the story be about?
Oh wow, that's a good question. The next 5 years would be,
if it was a book, what would the chapter
would be,
and what would the story be about?
The chapter would be probably the chapter would be something about like galloping, like the galloping, the galloping years, or the years of, or Affi in gallop or something like that. ReelFruit in galloping, in gallop, because it's been a long start, and we are seeing quite dramatic growth. And so these next 5 years are about consolidating and expanding that growth. And it would be all about that. It would be about global territory, local territory. It would be about expansion, because that's our current place. And it's not, we didn't just arrive here. It's been 13 years in the making. And it's that time to gallop, to move quickly, to expand quickly. I mean, this year alone, the kind of things we've done in my factory, things I could only dream of. Getting international certification. One of our new customers we just got is a European global grocery chain that we are supplying to, and that just happened in less than a year. And the future just continues to, have those types of opportunities, I believe, waiting for us. And of course, we have to raise the capital, expand, but because we have that track record, I believe it's going to move a lot quicker than the first 13 years. I believe we're going to probably achieve more than double what we've achieved in the first 13 years in the next 5 years.
So, on the lighter note, before we escape from this interview, I wish we keep talking on that one, because I'm actually, like I said, every interview is like a class, it's like a lesson, you're learning something. So on the lighter note, what do you do? Like, what's one hidden talent that you have that people don't really know about, And then what do you do when you are not, being Affi and running ReelFruit? So what do you do outside of that?
I don't really have any hidden talents. My only hidden talent, which is very obvious, is that I like to do hard things, and I can stomach a lot of difficult things. So my hobbies are not things people tend to feel are easy. I'm a marathon runner. I just ran my first ultra marathon in June, which was 90 kilometers in 11 hours and 46 minutes. So I was on my feet for half the day. And that's fun. I mean, it wasn't fun when I was doing it, but these are the things that I do for me to enjoy myself. I play sport. I play, up till recently play flag football, which was non-contact American football. And I'm going for a little tournament for some new sport I've picked up. And so the things I like, so the things I like are difficult and stuff like that. I don't have a hidden talent. I can't sing. I'm not really a great dancer. I'm not really, so just my hobbies are things to do with my personality and similar in the vein of my work, right? And outside of my work, of course, I'm a wife and I'm a mom. So I have my children and my husband at home, and my children are young, so they kind of like, keep you on your toes, as it were.
I get.
Yes, and always demanding something. I'm a friend, and I'm a daughter. My mom and I talk a lot. So just regular things. I teach Sunday school, so I like trying to be, I teach my son's class in Sunday school, so I try to be, more well-rounded and give back, and I involve myself in being of service to others in as much as I can. And that's it. Nothing else, very, very regular, very, very just normal things.
Okay. So on a final note, and this is my last question.
Sure, you can ask more. I'm fine.
Looking back, what's one truth about entrepreneurship you wish somebody had whispered to you before you started in 2012?
One truth someone had whispered.
You wish that somebody had whispered to you.
It's like that is going to take long. Like, it's going to take a long time, And even though I would have never been able to appreciate or internalize what long meant, because, I believe if you've not done something, it's very hard for you to appreciate what it actually means to endure that thing. So even if someone told me that, I would have been like, oh, it won't take me long, but yeah, that it's going to take longer than you think. Anything you think of, any timeline you think of, you can even more than double that, and it wouldn't be. And somebody, I don't know who quoted this, that people, I don't know, is it Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates? So, said something about like people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And I think that's just the reality of entrepreneurship, that is a compounding thing. In 1 year it might look like not much has happened and you're impatient in the days, but if you look over a longer period of time, the consistency compounds something much bigger. So yeah, if somebody had whispered that to me, I would have probably still not believed it. Nobody really can, but here I am 13 years down the line, and I'm hopefully building something to last. So I've kind of made peace with the fact that if I'm to sit on this journey, I have to get comfortable with what time it's going to take.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm so happy we've had this conversation and we've done this interview, because to be honest, personally, I've learned so much from listening to you, and I'm sure when people listen to it or watch it, they will gain a lot of confidence in what they are doing, and they will learn that the journey might be long, but it's worth the wait.
Yeah.
So on that note, I would like to say thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for staying tuned for this episode of Triumph Against Odds. I still remain your host, Obidike Okafor, and like we always say here, stay resilient and never give up.